It's true. I was able to find Jeff Lutz. He was wandering around out, somewhere there in the Midwest. And yeah, and at least for this Wednesday, we've got him. And I've got him in an arm lock, trying to convince him he should be on every Wednesday again, with exceptions, of course, Jeff. So how you been?
Yeah, I know. Great being with you, Randy. And I've been following the shows, and they're great. You're great, and it's just been super busy out there. But there's just so much going on, and it'd be great to reconnect with you again. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who don't know Jeff, Jeff is a supply chain expert. I'm going to say that, except for some secret stuff that you've been working on, your biggest claim to fame was putting up the only uh, phone phone assembly line in the United States ever, a smartphone assembly line in the U.S. But you've done a bunch of other stuffs with cars in China and yeah, all kinds of supply chain stuff. I'm gonna skip on my menu here. I'm gonna go straight to you and I together, famously, to you and me at least.
Mhm.
When the tariffs first got started, we were alone. We were by ourselves, talking about it's only going to have a small impact on the overall GDP. You were talking about, hey, look, it's going to have a huge impact on the car companies and it needs to be done differently.
Yes.
But we both agreed it was only going to have a small impact on the GDP. And here we have it. According to Chair Powell, at the last meeting, he said it's about 3.3 to 0.4% of the inflation right now. So I think we should take a victory lap.
Well, yeah, and I think it's a mixed bag. So I've been very critical of tariffs, saying I'm very supportive of. By the way, I think the U.S. should be tariffing countries. Let's be very clear. And what I want to be very clear about my thoughts on it is just the approach of how we do it, so we don't tariff the inputs on the assemblies we're trying to bring back here and do and let
Right.
these companies breathe. And that's what's actually happening. So this is what's happening under the surface. You're not seeing as many news reports about it, but if you search, you'll find it. If you search, you'll find that there's an MSRP rebate that the Commerce Department allowed and put on the auto businesses that have moved their assemblies back here in the U.S.
Okay.
And that's to help take off some of the impact of tariff. They're still tariffing the inputs of what's coming in the U.S., but it's clear that this is wreaking havoc on the auto business. There were some updates this morning. I reported it on my X feed. AJ reported it as well. He's a great follow as well. And it's just about GM, Ford, Stellantis. They're all changing their supplier contracts, and they're basically uh, they're basically putting a squeeze on. So there's less latitude for suppliers to come back with pricing adjustments in annual contractual negotiations or at whatever cycle those contracts are renewed. They're giving them less latitude, which is some of this is good. So some of it sounds like, okay, the auto OEMs are being big, mean, and mad
Right.
and bad people. But part of it is you want some of this squeezing to happen, as you know, in manufacturing. If you can squeeze at multiple different tiers, you're going to find opportunities. And if everybody's squeezing, if everybody's looking, and there's real contractual pressure, not just words, you may find things that you were never able to find before. But
100%.
it can get to the point, and you know this, it can get to the point where um, where it's detrimental to the health of the business. So I wouldn't be surprised if this continues, where the inputs are still tariffed, the OEMs are now squeezing the supply base. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. You may start seeing, cries for help, bankruptcies. You may start seeing issues with it. I
The
actually
supply.
think there's this in the supply base, in the U.S. auto supply base, and abroad too, in other countries too. I mean, we're putting there's pressure on them for
Right.
sure. So it is correct to say that the country that the tariff is going on, there is some amount of pressure on them to figure out how to take their costs down. There's no question about it. It's also fair to say that the importer on the U.S. side is picking some of this up, and it is also fair to say that consumers are seeing some higher prices on it. It depends on the product line. There's no monolith answer. If it's a very high demand product line, that means the OEM has pricing latitude and they can move pricing up and down. But if it's high supply, low demand, they can't do that and they have to drop their prices. So they won't be passing that to consumers. So everybody's looking for a monolith answer. There isn't.
Mhm.
The only thing I would say to you about I'm happy that there's not tremendous destruction, but I will say that these tariffs have gone on, they've gone on and off, and they've in different phases. And the ones that really went on were the ones that went on in mid-August. And and I know China went on and then came back down to 30%. That's hurting, by the way. That's hurting them. It's hurting some of our importers too. The ones that went on in mid-August, South Korea, Japan, European Union, all these that have gone on and now they're on for good. Remember, they were relaxed down to 10%. Now they're up at 15 and 20%. Those are they built up their inventories and now that inventory is burning off. Some of it burnt off in August, some of it burnt off in September, some of it's burning off now. I think you will start seeing if these just stay on the way they are, you will start we haven't heard the end of it is my point. It's not like tariffs work at the current level and everything's fine. I think the on and off nature, the inventory accumulation, these things are hard to explain. They don't fit in a 160 character tweet, but I do think that there are more surprises ahead. But it for this earnings season, it is coming down to earnings. It is coming down to a number of other different things. We'll get into it. I'll pause there.
Okay, all right. So basically, we're still looking though at a situation where now that we've got 7 months or whatever it's been of the tariff stuff in place in one degree or another, everybody's really aware of it. Everybody's on top of it. I mean, I can remember when I started in business, I didn't even own the company, but I was heavily involved in the purchasing of these padlocks from Germany. And I was watching the daily fluctuations in the Deutschmark
Right,
back in the day, and that was impacting. I had to figure out: am I going to raise my prices?
right.
Am I going to eat it? What is Master Padlock going to do? Because they were the big nemesis. So I'm sure that all those things are still 100% true right now. It's just more about tariffs than it is about dollars.
Yeah, because we weren't a country. We were the opposite. We had, an under 3% aggregate tariff rate, and in most cases we had none. And meanwhile, this is why I was screaming in the beginning of like, tariffs aren't bad. Like we were getting hammered by these other countries. So we absolutely should be tariffing, but we should be tariffing to some mean, to some ends, hopefully to reducing the net rate. But we have a great consumer economy, and they should be paying entry. Quite frankly, it's just how they're applied
Right.
is the key. And I think the administration is learning. I will tell you that that amount of time it takes for them to learn to me is directly a reflection on the makeup of the trade office. It's all lawyers and economists. I haven't heard of one prominent builder manufacturer that's in that group.
But Lutnick at least is over that, right? Or Lutnick and what's his the
Economist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But he's a businessman. Yeah,
He's
no,
not. He hasn't
you're
made a
not buying
widget. I mean, he
that.
hasn't made anything in the bike industry, Randy, or
Okay, that's
anything in
true.
the car or the phone industry or anything.
Yeah,
Even number
yeah,
two pencil, he hasn't made.
yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true.
and I'm not being critical. I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
saying. I actually am being critical,
Be
not of him,
critical.
but just like if you don't have the expertise, go find it.
Yeah.
They had it. They had Elon Musk within 5 feet of them,
Right.
and then things happened there. But he would have been the ultimate in terms of how do you do this in an effective way.
All right, well, let's take another look at kind of a different slice of this. So it was announced this morning. It's not really an announcement, apparently, a pretty good solid rumor that Tesla has placed orders for a bunch of actuators from China, enough to build 180,000 bots. If this turns out to be accurate, and it's being reported by a lot of people that usually do their due diligence, like Teslarati, for instance. First thoughts about this order, about what that means in terms of Optimus timing, et cetera. They're talking about first shipments coming in January. And why China instead of the US? And anyway, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, people should understand in the manufacturing world, there are different kinds of orders. There are letters of intent that could involve volumes. There is something called the capacity reservation purchase order, which is I need 180,000 worth of these. I want based on, the process times, based on the yields, based on the size of the capex involved. I want you to reserve the factory space. I want you to procure capital equipment, but I haven't given you approval to actually start manufacturing. And then there's the final purchase order. And the final purchase order is I'm giving you authorization also typically to start assembly of it. So we don't know which of those three
Mhm.
stages we're at. We don't know. I don't know. Sometimes people misinterpret what an LOA is. Sometimes people misinterpret what reserving capacity is, or it's a purchase order. And so it could be any of the three things. What do we know? We know Tesla is converging on the third version of the Optimus design. If you're Tesla, you probably want to be producing dozens, then hundreds of them before you put the big order out. Now, this is why I think they're reserving capacity and this supplier isn't actually starting production. But that's my take on it. But it means they are making progress, and it means we're getting closer to that final stage, or that is the final stage, and they actually are starting. It could be a 12-week, 14, 16-week lead time part,
Right.
and they're kicking off production for late Q1 deliveries. So it can be any of the above. My gut tells me that Tesla has to build dozens and hundreds of Optimus before they would want to build
Mhm.
tens of thousands of them. So my gut, and they don't need to order them this early for these mechanical actuators. I don't believe that. Now, the capex involved with these mechanical actuators does need to be ordered 6 to 9 months in advance. So that's the distinction of this. I don't want to get too wonky for your audience, but and then with these, when you see these kind of things out there, first off, I would be very surprised. I don't know where these manufacturing locations are. I know it's a Chinese company. I would be very surprised if Tesla is going to well, I would, to me, the end state for the Optimus supply chain is that there's a US supply chain, there's a European Union supply chain, and there's a China APAC supply chain. So I would be very surprised if there's a lot of global suppliers of critical components on Optimus.
Mhm.
So this may be where we're at this stage, and they're trying to develop the equivalent to this supplier in the US, and we just don't know who that is and when that is, or maybe that's their own internal capacity. I'm not sure, but I think end state is localized supply chains for Optimus. I think the smartphone was the last global supply chain. And by the way, when you think about national security,
Mhm.
what kind of position have we put ourselves in with rare earths? And whatever. Let's say we can do some stockpiling. I think we can solve a lot of our rare earth demand in a couple of years. It's not long. We will solve rare earths faster than they solve Blackwell and Rubin level performance with NVIDIA
All
and the
right.
software CUDA. We will do that before they do that. But even if we solve that, we are still broken in the smartphone supply chain. It does run through China, and there's work happening. I think a lot of companies are thinking about that. But um, the point is Optimus, I think, is going to be a localized supply chain. The smartphone was the last global supply chain. We see the effects of what happened to the auto industry. By the way, every automaker is hurting. I mean, except Tesla, I would say. Um, I, I mean, I can't think of an automaker that isn't hurting. Some of the China ones have brought in too much supply and are pulling the brakes back. Their growth is slowing, dramatically slowing. Some are still doing okay, but most of the major automakers, all the Western European, all the major US ones, they are hurting.
Yeah. No, the Japanese,
And
I mean, the Japanese EV makers, none of them are making money. And then the
yeah,
Japanese traditional ZSAICs and whatnot their sales are way down because nobody wants their branded General Motors or Ford cars anymore.
Yeah, now I would say Toyota's probably doing okay,
Right.
but we get we're talking about Optimus. So yeah,
Yeah.
this order it could be one of those three stages of order.
Okay.
I think they're converging on the third design, and I hope we see it soon.
So I like what you had to say about multiple supplier resources, that this may not be the only one. And because I was thinking,
There's
given,
no way it's the only one. Put it that way. There's no
yeah,
way.
okay,
They're going
yeah,
to have to
just
multi
given
sources.
given what's going on with China, but this is something I'm assuming these actuators do require rare earths, and so that would give us, to the extent that maybe their initial orders are going to come out of China, it might be because the rare earths are there. I'm just thinking out loud.
No, that doesn't actually matter. So the way the licenses work, and by the way, I read the MOFCOM announcements. I have a lot of experience dealing with these things in the past. I I mean, there could have been some, and I'm not a defender of China at all, but there could have been some sort of escalatory nature to that. But in general, no, I don't see any interview. If I were interviewing any of the president's cabinets or any of the trade representatives, I would have asked the question, have any of our licenses not been granted in a timely manner since this notice came out?
Right.
Did any behavior change from China? Because if any behavior changed from China and Ford's calling you, Tesla's calling you, Apple's calling you, whomever, then yeah, bring the hammer down.
Mhm.
But it's my understanding that the licenses are still going out.
Okay.
So this is what China has done. China has created a gigantic spreadsheet for the world. They are tracking because the world needs rare earths.
Mhm.
The rare earths are in pool toys. Rare earths are everywhere. Okay, anywhere you need a small, high-performing magnet that is mechanically stable over temperature, which is a lot of applications, there are rare earth magnets. So China has now, with this licensing approach, which by the way, they essentially copied from what we were doing on the lithography equipment for silicon.
Okay.
And we were having those manufacturers apply for licenses of like, okay, why are you producing this lithography equipment? Which factory is it going to? Who's the supplier
Mhm.
and which location is it going to? And we even started restricting the ones going into China.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying we started it per se. We kind of did in that scenario. So what China is doing now, since rare earths are, it's a common thing. It's not this exclusive thing like lithography equipment. They are, and it goes in so many things. Everybody has to file for a license, and then so it's your OEM. It's what product you're going into, where are you building it, what kind of product is this, so they know everything. Everything's got tracking, and they're tracking volume. They know they know a lot about your products now that I don't know if anybody wants the CCP to necessarily know because you have to give them volume projections on these licenses. So
I bet.
anyway, that's what's actually happening. I,
And
I have no information that licenses have stopped or licenses have slowed down or they're slow rolling anything.
and is this really about the rare earths themselves, or is it really about the magnets? Because my understanding is that China is also the source of the magnets. The
There's three stages. There's three
Right.
stages. So you pull it out of the ground,
Right.
you do the refining operation to get the various different elements, dysprosium, you name them, neodymium, all the different elements. There's lots. By the way, there's lots of them
Right.
of rare earths. And then that's the second stage. The third stage could be magnet assembly. In the case of magnet assembly, we have we have this stuff in the ground. We have enough stuff in the ground
Yes.
in the U.S. and all of our allies. We have plenty of stuff in the ground.
Right.
There's no issue.
Right.
So the Earth is not rare.
No.
Where it should be almost called rare processing and rare assembly because
Right.
that's the actual problem.
Right. Right. Okay.
So yeah, they have about 90% of the processing capacity of the world.
What about the
And
battery production
and
capacity?
on some of the elements, I don't know if it's dysprosium or which one specifically, some of them they have 99%
Yeah.
of the world's capacity. So they can just control it then.
But what about the magnet production? That was what I was getting to. Is that also 90%?
It's not 90. It's north of 70,
Okay,
sometimes 80%. It's a big number.
big number.
It's enough to where, they can choke anything off that they um that they want.
Right.
And just give you some of the ideas. Like I was looking at some of the numbers. It was like 350 to 400,000 metric tons of refining capacity last year, and I think there's a lot of data that's here. They were going to grow at the either between 450 and 600,000 metric tons this year. What do those numbers mean? Why does that matter? What did we have last year in the U.S. for processing? I think somewhere between 10 and 15 metric tons.
Yeah. All right, but you're thinking 2 to 3 years before we maybe start to modify some of those numbers in an important way.
Yep.
Okay, and then do you think that Elon has any kind of, I mean, I'm sure he must have his spies out there, but do you think he has good information about where China is actually, how they're thinking, what they're thinking in terms of how this might all play out next week in Korea? Or do you think that he's just like the
Oh,
rest of
I'm not sure about if he's no. I would say the answer to that would be no. But what he does have is he at his level is revered and loved there.
China?
So
Okay.
Tesla, the company, is a good citizen of China. And this gets, by the way, this gets really chopped up in the news cycle. I heard on CNBC this morning, one of the anchors talking about U.S. manufacturing. Well, Tesla does, it's big amounts of manufacturing in China. That's for
Yeah.
the China market.
Right. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
mostly.
Right.
So that makes sense. And they do every U.S. car on the road is made here. So that's what you want. But no, Tesla's a very good China relationship. Very good. That's why the rare earths was a problem, but you'd never heard Tesla squeal because as soon as they realized what the process is, oh, I got to apply for my licenses. Fine. Boom, their China team went in and did it. And guess what? Because of that relationship, it's all the way up to the Elon level. They're not going to have a problem. I'm not predicting the future per se.
Right.
Something could happen down the line, but all these, especially like Tesla Q and all these people are like, oh, China's going to clamp down and kick must. No, it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. They have the best facility deal, the best business of any multinational that I've ever heard of in China, and they're expanding
Yeah.
and they're doing a ton of domestic exports. China loves them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So speaking of China, we've got now rumors that the smaller car is back on the table for China. Then there's additional rumors that that smaller car is also back on the table for Europe and America. We've got a new uh, standard version of the Model 3 and the Model Y. We've got the long version. We got all these new versions, all this new conversation about models. First question is, what do you think about the current pricing and product dynamic setup? The second question, just so you know, is does it matter? Because is it all going to be robotaxis anyway? I mean, so
Yeah, I think before Randy last time we were speaking in April and May on this show, my prediction was Tesla would do a long version of the Model Y and a short version of the Model Y. And there's so many reasons to do that. Model Y is a smash success, tremendous volume and leverage within the supply base, which means they're gonna get this rolling COGS decline like nobody else can do, including BYD, by the way. Nobody else can do what they're doing just given the volume they have on this SKU. So the parts that get longer in the longer Model Y are the parts that mostly Tesla makes
Mhm.
themselves.
Mhm.
So that's a CapEx reconfiguration, and that's a very small dollar reconfiguration. That's called, the end effector in the automation scheme. That's you're going and modifying the end effector. That big robot arm stays, and you're making these smaller changes. You're making programming changes to build that longer vehicle to make those bigger parts. Where And then the same thing applies, but even better to make a smaller vehicle.
Hmm.
The same. A lot of the body, all the body mechanics that are shrinking, they're made in the Tesla factory for the most part. And now you can take the mass of the battery down further. You take the mass of the total vehicle down, you can take the mass of the battery down, you can take a lot of cost out. And the consumer could still have a 300-mile plus vehicle when you do something like that. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Tesla to do a smaller version of the 3 or Y or both, but probably the Y. And I do think that that's going to actually happen. I don't think Tesla's done. I think the standard, all this hubbub 2 weeks ago about the standard Model Y and 3, my response to that was Tesla does this every other year. Now, they've done it to a little bit more of an extent with these vehicles in terms of the modifications,
Right.
but in terms of like doing a standard rear-wheel drive version and taking the cost down a couple $1,000s, they do this. This came down about 5 to 6,000 depending on the model type, and that's roughly what I expected.
Hmm.
I didn't expect them to take 10,000 or 12,000 down. There's not enough there. You'll be getting into the core design when you do that, and that's not what they were doing. So I didn't expect them to do that, and I didn't want them to do that because if they did that, then you'd start the Cybercab is going to start out closer to 30 probably when it first starts, and it'll settle down much lower, hopefully, when it gets to scale. So I don't think Tesla needs all that crowding there at this point. But so now you've got this 36 to 39K slot. And I think they're going to sell a lot of cars. People think these people aren't going to buy these cars and they're just going to buy the more expensive cars. That's the 0.001% of people that are on X and
Yeah.
people like you and I talking heads that can, potentially afford,
Right.
to add all the features in. And that's how we think. That's not how the market, that people are stretching to buy their first Tesla. And if that first Tesla now is achievable at 36 new, and it used to be 41 or 42 before, that's a big deal for people. So if they do a shorter Model Y, maybe that could take it down another couple of thousand. So then Tesla can really start filling this out. But I'm okay with what they did. I'm not, I mean, maybe it was a little bit hyped up too much, and I think that's where some of the disappointment was in the market. But I don't want Tesla CapEx dollars going to make some brand new form factor thing on a serial manufacturing line because I know those cogs are terminating at a level that the Cybercab can get to much lower with those CapEx dollars. So if Tesla has CapEx dollars to make auto hardware, I want it going to Cybercabs. I actually want it going to Cybercabs and Optimus. I do not want to make another. That would be the return on that investment would not be good. The return on investment on these standard Model Ys, almost no CapEx and very little CapEx investment,
Yeah.
and you're going to produce all these cars at a lower price. That's what you want. The big CapEx dollars go for Cybercab. If you have a new factory, all the parts are new. Your supply base has new CapEx. Some of that you have to
Right.
fund. Some of the unique stuff you have to fund. So that's where I want the dollars going.
When does the last steering wheel get made for a Tesla?
I think they're going to be producing cars with steering wheels uh for the foreseeable. I can't give you a date. It's not next year. It's in they're going to keep producing through the next year and the year after that, I think.
Okay, that would be well. So my date is 2028. That
Yeah.
we have the
And
last
like
steering.
they're going to make a roadster. They're going to I this transition is not going to be a knife switch. So the economics may move a little bit faster, but human psyche
Right.
uh probably won't. So but the economics will move. This is, I mean, you've seen that just look at the generic growth in ride sharing
Right.
with Uber and Lyft and all the different companies. You see the millions and millions of billions of rides that are given. That's going to continue. And if Tesla comes out with a service that's a fraction of their price, that growth is going to continue. So, but people are still going to be driving cars for a number of years.
Yeah.
It just
I-
is.
well, there'll be millions of cars that have steering wheels for the next 20 years. Because it's going to take that long for the used cars to go to be and end up in the trash heap. I'm just thinking in terms of Tesla's own production.
I think it's a good question. I think I'm with you at 27 or 28, probably 28.
Yeah. Okay, we know there's a huge need for electricity in the United States. There's a book coming out, I don't know, something about AI rising or something that you were invited to be a writer for, and you couldn't get the time anyway. But we'll be thinking about you all the way to the bank. No, I'm kidding, I'm just playing.
Congrats on the
Um,
book.
in the book, we spend a tremendous amount of time in the book talking about the need for electricity. If you turn into any of these podcasts that are looking at tech right now, it's like 20% of every program. We need a lot of electricity. Tesla, of course, is the leader in this category in so many different ways. What do you think they're going to do to help with this demand problem other than build storage batteries? Do you think that they will do solar? I mean, he talked about a solar gigafactory. Do you think more actual production and sales as a utility, like they're doing in England and in Texas? Do you think small nuclear reactors? Anything else? What do you think? What do you think they're going to do to help out?
Well, Tesla's clearly going to ramp up battery storage and continue down that path. They've led the way. They have tremendous capacity, and that is going to continue. Elon is committed to solve the problem. Anything that bottlenecks anything that he's trying to do or he thinks the world needs, he's going to go in and solve the problem. If it he thinks we need to be multiplanetary, he's going to go solve that bottleneck. That's what he's and he'll create a $500 billion company to do that. So the question on energy generation is, what is the innovation that Elon Tesla have they figured out how to make a more efficient cell in terms of for solar? Have they figured out how to convert that energy more efficiently and store it into batteries? Have they figured out a manufacturing method for solar that China and other like First Solar in the U.S. haven't figured out, where they can make them meaningfully cheaper? So there has to be a product R&D innovation or a manufacturing innovation where the cost structure enables them to get to the point to be able to produce that much energy. Otherwise, I don't see them doing it. Now there could be some acquisitions involved. There could be, I don't know. I think Elon likes to do as
Do it.
much of this
Yeah.
stuff as possible himself. But you look in the case of like wireless charging, they acquired that company Wiferion, but then they kept the IP and they kept the key assets and they got rid of the rest of it. So they figure out what they need. So the answer is it's possible, but there's going to have to be a product or manufacturing breakthrough on generation for them
Mhm.
to get into that. And if he is, he will stand up a gigafactory and build it.
Mhm. Mhm. Anything else that you see out there on the horizon in terms, I mean, we have the obvious ones like the SMRs, and are you seeing anything else that isn't being talked about that might be a Tesla potential for helping with this problem?
Not a Tesla potential for helping with this problem, but I mean, there's other energy storage players out there. There's EOS, which I do spend a lot of time investigating and trying to understand that company. There's a very vibrant community on X, very smart community, by the way, that have been looking into this for the last couple of years. And I think the market is waking up and realizing that not only is there this big opportunity with just we're going to have this energy void for data center, but then when those data centers are stood up, there's still going to be energy. There's still going to be issues at peak loading where you would need these batteries in these situations to keep the network up and going. And EOS makes it's this very special product. The patents are they acquired actually from ExxonMobil,
Mm.
and they've re-engineered their product. This isn't the company that SPACed, 5 or so years ago. This is new company, uh, almost a whole new management team, a new product. They have a new product, and most importantly, what they've done the last 2 years is brand new factory.
Yeah.
front to back automation, and this thing's 91% sourced in the US. So when people ask me like, well, why wouldn't you just like what Tesla can do it all? Well, no, well, this company's working on long duration storage. Tesla is more of in the kind of the 2 to 4 hour. Now Tesla is going to get into the more long duration storage, but the answer I have for people is the demand is so gigantic. The pie is just getting bigger. We probably need more people domestic in the U.S. So there's Tesla, there's EOS, there's Fluence in terms of working on this energy storage challenge. And then there's all these curveballs that are being thrown to everybody, right? So there's specific tariffs on lithium ion
Right.
that are going on. There's specific tariffs on the cells that are going on, and of course they would be on the pack level if anybody imported that, but they're not. So all these companies like Tesla and Fluence have to figure out domestic LFP cell capacity. EOS has this figured out already with their zinc bromide chemistry. The biggest thing, if people ask you at 7 seconds in an elevator, is this is an aqueous based solution. It is not going to catch on fire. You
Mhm.
don't need all the fire suppression equipment. You could stand and stack these cubes up a couple stories if you wanted to and put them next to an office building in New York City. You're not gonna be concerned about the fire risk in an urban area. And not to say that stationary storage is bad or there's this massive problem. It's just
Right.
something you have to deal with.
Right.
And then the cost structure is at scale is going to be because you don't need all that fire suppression equipment. You don't need all that. The cost structure at scale is going to also be something very competitive, very special. So there's room for more than one player here. Tesla has tremendous capacity. Tesla's going to do is doing amazing and will do amazing. I like them both.
Do you expect any announcements anytime soon about the next factory from Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, I, I think the pace of that is actually going to pick up
Okay.
a bit. I think the world needs a. There's a bit of economic disruption that's happening. I think the world wants to work through a little bit of that. But everybody in the world, this AI theme isn't a U.S. thing only. All these sovereign countries are going to want their own AI infrastructure backends. If they want their own AI infrastructure backend, they're going to want to be able to power it.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to buy Tesla Megapacks. I will tell you that.
Mhm.
And um, they should buy it. If it fits the application, they should. And there's companies, quite frankly, that want to be and should be multi-sourced in this area as well.
Yeah. So yeah, so that gives us a great transition into AI. So there's a tremendous again, we've written an entire book about this, but I'm just curious about your take. We've got Kathy Wood and Peter Diamandis and others who are saying we're entering an age of abundance. We've got other people saying, gee whiz, we can't even see. I guess MIT did a study, they couldn't even see where 10% of the companies were already getting some benefit from the AI products that they've been buying. We've got people in the middle, Chairman Powell of the Fed saying we're the tip of the spear. And the implication of that was, but the tip of the spear is in, so it's going to start hitting next year. What are you thinking about with regard to where we are on AI?
A lot of these companies producing AI text-based solutions have struggled to get their infrastructure up, and therefore some of the services aren't that great or aren't that powerful, but they're rapidly improving and they are bringing up that that network infrastructure now. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about Tesla and just real world AI devices, things you can buy and use as a consumer that change your life. So they have the car now, which 100% of the time I get in the car, I don't drive anymore. My car drives. That is a change in my life that will be permanent. I will always want to be in a car where I can just get in, voice where I'm going, press a button, or not even press a button, and just
Yeah,
start going.
yeah,
And we need more of those products to fuel this AI boom. We need humanoids that they will transform manufacturing, they will transform services, they will transform uh, medical, just a number of different things. But the text-based AI piece is just scratching the surface. Now you're getting this cursory knowledge, this cursory research. You're getting some game generation. You're getting some things that are happening on the periphery. You're getting a lot of code generation, which is allowing companies to be a lot more productive. Okay. But I think we're just scratching the surface, like major disease discovery and curing. There's so many different things, and we really haven't absorbed AI in manufacturing and supply chain yet. It's starting,
Mhm.
but there's the sky's the limit. I agree with this whole sentiment of you're going to have a physical factory, and then behind that factory, you're going to have this digital AI version of it that is the brain. So now, when people talk about building out factories, everybody talked about hammers, nails, and metal and in constructing a factory, and you still have to do that because you still have to physically make something. But now you've got to me, to make something efficiently, so it's going to be at the right cost at scale, we're going to want to figure out how to introduce AI so we can continuously reduce the process time to make the product. We can train people faster to build the product. We can put people on the line that don't get tired. If they get tired, they just need a new battery. And then you can do so many things with AI: defect reduction, prevention, better quality. There's just the sky's the limit with AI manufacturing. We're just tickling the surface of that. Same with, like I said, with medicine. So I just think we're at the very early innings of this thing, and we haven't gone full sovereign AI either. So
Yeah.
that's going to happen too, and that's going to cause a tremendous build out.
So one of the big worries that people have is what's going to happen to my job. And one of the claims I make in the book is that 10 years from now, even 20 years from now, you'll be able to walk into one of these little industrial parks in any city in America and pull up the garage on a 1,700 square foot unit, and it won't look that different than it does now because people are really slow to change, really slow to take on all the latest greatest stuff. And so you've been in factories now for the last
Hmm.
30 years or whatever. And seen some that hear the call and make the change. And you got General Motors and Ford, who are pretty big companies with lots of CapEx capability, who are still 10 years behind Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla's innovating on just agnostic of AI. They're innovating on how to make things. But what happens when AI can start, if it took you 20 different revisions to get that door handle designed and get the tolerances and the clearance, what if AI can help you do it in two revisions? So now all of a sudden you still need Lars and you still need the engineering team at Tesla, but now you've become a lot more efficient in terms of modeling, simulation, and preventing design revisions because of human error. And when we get to that point, I think that's what you're going to see. So this whole thing about abundance, I think you'll be able to make a lot more things with fewer people, but you will probably be making a lot more different kind of things. Like I'm of this like there will be distribution, and there may be some jobs that go away, but I just think there will be a lot of jobs that will be created. You'll just have to figure out how to manipulate and work a, in a different way, with AI. So what should people study, right? Going to school. I think it's interesting. It switched. There was this big switch from hardware to everything software, and now it's like, well, maybe not, because a lot of that can be automatically generated. Sure, you'll have somebody have to prompt it and architect it and do some other things, but even that is gonna, you know, maybe be taken care of by AI. But still, you still need people that know how to make physical things and make the machine that makes the machine.
Right.
And there will still be a need for that. I just think we'll be making a lot more different things. So I'm not of the doom and gloom. AI is going to put everybody in the street kind of thing. I just think it's the country that figures it out is going to have a massive trade surplus, and it'll be massively rich.
Yeah.
The country that figures this out, and this is why it all comes full circle to this trade conversation with China. This is why this is so important in trying to figure this out. I am not of the belief that we should be trying to export control our way out of competing with China. I think the gloves should just go off. Let them go, let us go. But we have to work in a different way. We have to work in the Elon 24/7 way to compete with them.
Yeah.
And I think we can.
Well, speaking of Elon, see, you keep doing it. You gave me the transition to the last question of the day, which is what question or questions are top of mind for you a week from today on the 22nd?
Tell me why Tesla uses advertising to solve the awareness problem for voting shares and not for the awareness problem of FSD in the vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, that's your top question. But could you get that? Could you put that up on the what's it called? The
Yeah,
website?
maybe I will get that up there. No, I mean, I have questions about Optimus. So I have questions about FSD. I mean, there's so many different things you could ask. Obviously, it's like, okay, based on all the information you have now, Tesla with FSD 14, all the robotaxi trials, what does it mean to what the date will be unsupervised
Yeah.
and the date will go to more wider, robotaxi deployments? I think that would be a great question. Start of production on Optimus would be a great question because that's, I think, a big milestone.
Huge.
Real start of production. I
Huge.
think the answer we're going to get is it's going to be some sort of iterative slow thing, and there'll be many versions of Optimus, I think is the answer we'll get. But that would be the couple things that come to mind for me.
Okay, all right. Well, we're on the same page. Obviously, Optimus is always at the top of my mind, but I also believe the unsupervised is actually maybe more important than the beginning of Robotaxi, the real beginning
I
of.
think we're there. I think they've solved it.
Yeah.
I think they are now in defect reduction mode. I think they have a model that can solve it, and now they're just working through all the use cases and making sure. What I was looking for in V14 is pull over for emergency vehicles, pull over for stop for school buses, properly navigate in parking lots and figure out how I'm going to terminate my destination. Those were the things I was looking for, and it looks like they're in. But I think it's early. I think, and by the way, these early the drivers that are outside of Tesla, they do an amazing job
They
getting
do.
out there at all hours of the night,
They
getting a
do.
bunch of videos up. But remember, that's five or so people out of potentially a million that may be using this in the US or whatever the number is. So the what happens from a quality and reliability perspective could be a bit different. So Tesla has much better information, though. So that's why I would ask them that question in that meeting, based on everything you're seeing now. What day did we go unsupervised?
Yeah. Amen. That's the one I'm looking for. All right, Jeff. Thank you again for making the time. Apparently,
Yeah, great to connect,
we
Randy.
have a little time now, and we'll hope that we can do this on a regular basis. And yeah, I think that's it. And so, to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.